All right, so like we already know, okay. So we will the basic, okay, but this time around we won't be opening our the previous project folder we've been using, that's project one. So we're basically gonna create like a new folder, but then we're gonna still make use of that virtual environment, right? That particular virtual environment that we use for project one. We're still gonna make use of it because we don't want to come and start reinstalling some dependencies again. So just use that particular virtual environment. But the thing is that we can't move that virtual environment from where it is, because if you move it out from its current location, then it's no longer usable. Right. So what we do is that we simply navigate to that directory, then we activate it, and then we navigate out of the directory. Right. That's basically what we're gonna do. So quickly we will go to our file explorer, and then we go to desktop, and then KodeCamp intermediate 4. Right, so we had some empty folder here, right? Some empty folders here, right? So this is the one that we used, okay, and I think we're having some certain issue there due to how our files were actually being set up, okay. So in this particular folder in project 2, which is what we are gonna use, right? We're gonna actually take time to know how to structure this thing as well, right? And wrap up with bigger application, how to manage bigger application, and then testing, and then move to documentation. Sorry, please you will forgive me as well for my voice. Bear with me. Hopefully for next class I should get better. Right, so I will simply navigate here, right, and then I will activate the environment, and then we navigate back out again, and then down to project one, and then we open it up in our VS Code, and then we start from there to arrange our files properly. So going to command prompt, no CMD, right? So change directory in the project one folder, which is our previous folder, which we've been using. But then the reason why we are coming here is because we intend to use the virtual environment there. So like I said, if we move that virtual environment folder out of that directory, then those dependencies becomes not usable again. You can't actually use it again. So it becomes how do I put it? It becomes I don't want to use useless though, but then it doesn't just work again, right? It doesn't just work again. Right, so since we are here now, so I could just list out what we have, what we have here, and then you could see that we have our project folder, we have our BNB. So I'll simply activate the BNB there. So backslash script, backslash activate. Okay. Right, and then we just change directory to we just move a little bit one folder backward, right, to the KodeCamp for intermediate folder. So to do that, to simply just a CD and then double dot, and take you to the parent folder of your current directory. Okay, so we are currently in project one. So the parent folder of project one is KodeCamp for intermediate, right? So CD dot dot will do what we just take out one step back, okay, and we are there. So I can now list again what we have here. We have project one, two, and three. So I'll just change that to project three, right? CD project two, rather, sorry. Okay, and we are there. So that's basically what you want to do. And then we can open this up with VS Code. Okay, open it up with VS Code. Right, so the folder is empty, okay, as expected, or as it should be. It's empty. Right, so one thing that I want to actually point out is that there's no defined structure, right, in how your project folder should look like, right? So this is me just giving you what I basically just do, right? If I was the one to actually build a project, there is no the first part API, that there's no way in that there's no part in the documentation that says your project folder needs to look like this, or needs to carry this particular folder name, and so on and so forth, right? So it's all programmer dependent. So programmer dependent. So basically, what I want to do is to create a folder inside this folder, and this folder will just I'll call it app, right? Meaning that is where the entire source code is that lives inside project two, right? So inside project two, I'm basically creating another folder inside there, right? So I'll just and where I have project two up there, I'll just create a new folder there, and I'll call this folder app. So that's the only folder we have there, and it's empty. If you go back to our file explorer, then you should see it in there, but then it should be empty. Going back to project two, because that's what we're working with now. we have app, and it's of course it's empty as expected. All right, so having that in mind, all right, so having app in mind, then now the next thing you want to do is basically create folders, right? Folders that you see fit, right? That is necessary, or that you see fit for your project. But one important thing is that inside your project folder, of course, you should have your app, your main.py file, right? Basically, that is your entry point to your application. So inside my app folder, it's not project two folder, inside the app folder, right? I will I would create a new file and I'll call this file app. All right, app. Okay, sorry, main.py, rather, main.py. Right, so that is our entry point. All right. The trick here is this, right? Now, for every folder that for every folder that you create inside project two, right, add a special file inside there, right? And that file is init.py. Now, init.py is a special file that Python uses, right? To know that this particular folder is a package. So as such, whatever file that inside here can be or should be given the access to what to be imported within this particular project, right? So that way we don't have importation error. All right. So in the same directory where I have my main.py, I'll just since app is also a folder, I'll simply just add the init there, right? It's a special file. The file doesn't need to actually contain anything, right? So it's underscore underscore init, like it initialize, right? And then underscore underscore again .py. And trust me, that file you just have to leave there in your folder. That if you create another folder inside this folder, whatever folder you start creating going forward, just simply add the init file in there, right? Now that way it helps Python to find your files easily, right? It helps Python to find your file easily. So and it also let Python know that this folder should be considered a package as such. Whatever modules that live there, when I mean module, whatever file that lives in that folder can be imported and use wherever within the project. So if you go back into our project folder, and so we have of course the two files we just created within what our app folder. Please take note that those files lives within our app folder, not the project folder itself, right? So they live there. Now, within this app folder, you can start creating whatever folder you see need, right? You can start creating whatever folder you see need. All right. So let's assume that I will need, of course, most importantly, definitely I will need a folder called router. You can call it router. You can call it whatever you want to call it. I'll call my API. So I have to create a new folder. I'll call it API. So API basically would be a folder, right? That will hold basically all our endpoints, right? Pertaining in this project, all our endpoints will live in that folder. So if I have a project that require me to write some functionality for main user, for admin user, for guest user, hotel management system, whatever, however that application is big, if I intend to split them into different portions, and their route, I'll just basically put them in separate files within the API folder. And remember, like I said, as you create a folder, it simply was simply add the init.py. So I'll just copy one and just put there. So copy and just put it there. Right, that's simple. And now probably you may also need models. They're very important models. So I would just let's see if I can duplicate this. Duplicate. So I don't think I can. Okay, so let me just create another folder again inside app. This folder should live inside app. Whatever you're creating lives inside what the app folder itself. So folder. I'll call this model. So model, of course, we know this is basically where our database tables, right, we live, right? This is just for illustration's sake, right? This folder may be as many as possible depending on you, the developer. But the main thing is that this folder should live inside a parent folder that should live inside your project folder. And then each of these folder should carry the init file. Each of these folder should carry the init file. So copy this one as well and put it there as well. Okay. What again we need? Schemas as well, schemas and crude, probably database configuration and all that stuff. But I'll just put them so okay, one more folder and we should leave it there. Okay, one more folder. So I'll just call this schemas, right? Schemas folder. Schemas. Of course, you know schemas need to carry what? Need to carry the let's confirm that it's not outside our folder. If it's outside, so we need to bring it back inside. We drag this one and put it back inside the app. That's it. Right. So of course, with a schema should do what should carry a init, so we could just copy the init as well. Just put it there. And one important thing that we're going to use in this particular class is the text, because we're going to write some text again, and then make sure that that our text is working as it should. Right, that this is working as it should. So I'll paste this one inside here, and then one more folder. Okay, and I'll simply just come here and create a new folder, and I'll call this text. So test will just be a folder that holds everything pertaining to our test for this particular project. So I'll just, of course, the init folder, copy this one, I highlighted the wrong thing. Copy this one and just paste it there. So this can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, depending on how big your project is. You could have folder for your middleware, you could have folder for your crude operation, of course, which is actually compulsory. It's necessary. Every application you build will likely carry out crude functionality. So of course that folder is necessary. Of course, you can also have a separate folder for your database configuration, right? So all your settings for the database actually just leave there. And then maybe if you have like a standard third-party application that you're using within your application, you can have a separate folder for them. We call it probably the utility the utils folder, and then all those and whatever needs to stay there can stay there. Probably sending of emails and all that stuff can just leave in that folder. But we work with this one, right? We work with this one. We work with these few ones that we've created, which just pick up few and use them. So now, if you open our folder, we have this as many folders as possible, right? As possible. So this is where we basically want to put all our code. So for testing, I'll just put in our fast API and few fast API code there, and then see that this should work good to work as expected, right? That this should get to work as expected. So I say please forgive apologies for my voice. Very next class, it should be wonderful. Right, so I'll simply say from. Okay, so first of all, let's be sure that our interpreter in this particular project is referencing the one that we'll be using in our project one. So we simply Control Shift P, and then we select interpreter, and so it seems to be using that. Right, so it seems to be using that. That's what we want. So you can simply say from. You can say from fast API. I want to go ahead and import the fast API itself. So, and then we just create the instance of our app. Fast API, and then we run that. So we create a very simple route, very simple one. Excuse me, sorry. Very simple route. So this one to just call it app. You get request, right? And then it should just basically be a root and a root kind of request, okay? So just create a handler for that object and call it root. And this one will take nothing as parameter and should return a very simple message for us, okay? Very simple message for us. So we say message, and the message will be well structured. Well structured. Spell correctly. Well structured folder. Okay. Right. So that should be. Let's go ahead and just run. Let's turn on our UVCon and then put this and test this out and see if it's working. So we have our environment, and I want to switch this to CMD. And then we want to say UVCon, and then we say main. We want to be sure that we are there. So if it's to dir, so we need to actually go inside the app folder. Though we can at least stay from here and actually do that by saying app.main, all right? And that will actually work. But then you can just switch directly to the app folder itself if you want. But you can actually stay from here and just do app.main, and that will actually work. Okay. So basically what I mean, you could actually stay here and just say UVCon, and app being that folder that is there, this folder here. right? Then dot main being the file that's inside that folder, all right? So that file is just there, and then you could just reference the update itself, and then you just that's reload. That will still work, all right? That will still work. So you could see that still work as so that still work as expected. Okay, that still work as expected. So, but you could as you can still navigate inside that app folder and go ahead and just run your UV called main column app dash dash reload. Okay, so let's just take this out and let's see if it's working as it should. Okay, so go to browser. So I'll just escape this part from now. Actually copy them. Let's copy our this one. We'll paste it there. Right, so we have our message as expected, well-structured folder. Okay, that's perfect. So it means that our application is still breathing, right? Application is still breathing. So what we want to do now is we want to actually put some route, right? We want to put some route at some point. Okay, we want to put some route at some point, right? So let's assume that we have let's say that this application is an application where user get to, let's say, do things with items. Okay, so basically user can probably there's some functionality that the user can do, and there's some functionality that and the admin can do with the items. Okay, so we just assume that that's one to segment what these two functionality, the item functionality and the user functionality, right? And we don't want to mix up these endpoints for all of them in one file, right? So we can basically just create separate files and just put their appropriate their appropriate endpoint for each of them. Okay, like we saw in our previous class where we were dealing with bigger application, how to handle it, how to manage route. So we go back and then we have our API right there. Okay, now within our API, I can create a new file. On this file, or we simply call it users.py, right? User.py, and that file will basically handle what endpoints for users, right? Endpoints for users. And I'll create another file and I'll call it, sorry, sorry guys. I'll call this items.py. Okay, items.py. Okay, so we have our two files there. So basically what we want to do now is to start building a separate endpoint for each of these in this file, and then we can do what, shift it down to our main application, and hopefully it should, not hopefully it should actually work for us, right? Because this structure is correct. Okay, correct. So let's let's do that. So we know what we are going to use to actually create routes separately, right? So we are going to make use of API router, right? So API router actually allows you to create separate routes in different files, and then you can simply merge it in your main.py, right? In your main.py. So we simply say from where, from fast API. Okay, fast API, you want to import API router. API router. There you go. All right, and then we want to do what? Create an instance of it, similar to how we created the instance of app. All right, so this is more like a subsection of your app, right? A small portion of the application. Right? So you now say router. Okay, so we already have the main app there, router, and then we simply just instantiate API router. We're good to go. With that, we can just simply start, creating our endpoint. So I'll just create one. Basically, all these endpoint will likely be Git, right? So we can just simply test them out in our browser. Okay, without necessarily bringing up Postman. Okay, so router, but if need be, we are actually going to see the post request as well. So router.get, okay, router.get, and we basically just gonna say that this is item. So basically, I want all the routes, okay, to start with item. So I know that everything that starts with items, right, belongs to the item section, right? So items like whatever needs to be there, right? Items like whatever needs to be there. So and for now, I'll leave them at there. Yeah, and probably this one could be get item dash get item for now. Okay, and the handler for this will simply just say get underscore item. So two routes for each of them should be okay for us, right? Two routes for each of them should be okay for us. So we simply just return was a dictionary, it's an item, and then we just say item data, for instance. So, okay. And then we would also have another route. And this route would basically just be not to get one item, but then to get all items rather. So this would be to get all dash item. Okay. And then I'll say all, and then I'll just say all items. That should actually do this particular route. Okay. So we have two route there that handles that works for item. Okay, so all the functionality, all the logic pertaining to items, you can actually find in this. You can actually find them in these handlers there that lives within what the item apply. Okay, so I'll just copy this one and just go to our user.py, and so it's basically gonna be the same thing except I'll just replace all item with user. So I'll duplicate what to user, right? And that should that's, I believe you are fully in. Select. We fully in, right? Am I the only one talking?
Yes, I'm following.
All right. Okay. So just wanted to be sure that we are. All right. So we have that now, and that should do for that particular for that should do for users, right? That should do for users. So we don't really need much. Okay. So we don't really just for illustration sake, right? So we don't really need. So now, what you want to do now is to basically bring in this route that we've created separately into our main.py, right? So into our main.py file. So you want to bring in those men there, right? So how do we do this? It's quite simple. Quite simple. So how we want to do this? We would simply go to our main, okay, being our file here, of course, and then we simply include, right? So the HTML itself class, right, have a method called include router, and they actually be used to bring in a sub router that we've created within our application. Okay. So first of all, I want to bring in those routers, right? So I'll simply say from current directory, because all those folders live there. So from current directory API, that's where they are. I basically want to import. Okay, I want to import the users, and also want to import the items themselves. And then basically now want to include, right, to actually include. So just say app.include router, and then we do what we include the instance of that router, right? Of that router. So I mean the instance, of course, we've already talked about this. I basically mean this man here, right? Because that is the man that is handling every route that lives within this file. So you want to include that instance, right? So so back to main. So we simply say users dot router. That's basically what we're gonna do, and we do the same thing for items. So copy and paste, just duplicate that line. Items. No, sorry, that should be not actually it should be items dot router. Okay. All right, so that we are good to go. Right, with that we are good to go. So let's try this out and let's see that everything is working as expected. So everything is working as expected. All right, so we will refresh, and yeah, it's working as expected. So we go to items, and then I'll get, I think that's all the items, I think. Okay, let's confirm that to be sure. That is all the items. Let's see the item. get excuse me, so it's get all item, but item slash get all item. So put that there. And you can see that we have our endpoint working as expected. We also try for user. So we do some of the same things. If you want to change the item to user, get all user. Rather than go by expected, let's just confirm that. Get all user. So it's users rather, not sorry. So this should be users rather. Users. So we have our course. So it means that what that fat API is basically just the what has seen everything that needs to be that needs has actually done what has actually infused those endpoints to our project itself, and that is good, right? And that is good. That's exactly what we want. So the problem here was that when we try to write some tests to test each of these endpoints, so we were having some problem, right? We're having some problem, and that is where we need to do what to fix this problem, right? We need to do what to actually fix these issues, right? So let's go back. So now I believe that with this now properly configured, I believe that we should be, yeah, we should be good to go, right? That we should be good to go. That we should be good to go. Right. So now let's see. Let's see what we can do now, right? So basically, we need to do what we need to start writing our tests to do what to test our endpoints. Okay. So I'll first of all, I'll first of all test let's say the main one. Okay, the parents endpoint. So we have a folder that should do that for us. Have a folder to do that for us. So this folder is here. So we could actually write, we could actually create a separate file within the test, right? That actually works for each section of our application. So I can create a file within the test and I can call this I can actually call this man. Remember that we're making use of PyTest, and the way PyTest works is that you expect that your file start with test, okay? Test underscore whatever follows, okay? So I'll simply say test underscore, and this one should be home, right? Dot py. So that is for our test, right? For our home itself, okay? So let's go ahead and just let's bring that man here. Let's basically bring that man here, right? So having that now, so we can start actually making this test out, right? We can start actually making this test out. So first of all, I will import the PyTest itself. I import the PyTest itself. So I will simply say from here, from let's say from Fast API, so Fast API dot test client, okay, import test client. So this is more like see it as someone that intend to do what to simulate this our application, right? See it as someone that intend to simulate the application, the test client, right? And then what we need again is to bring in our app itself down here. So we could simply start, so we will actually grant full access to what the application and can start writing this test one by one, okay, and it should work for us. So we'll simply say from. So dot simply means that we are in the current directory, right? So if we're not add another dot, it simply means that we're not outside what the directory itself, the outside what the actual directory itself. So I don't think you guys actually understand that logic. Are we there? Do you understand that logic? So here we are using relative importation, right? If I say from dot, I'm basically saying from current directory. So at the moment, this is where we are within dot the test folder. And our main file is not actually there. It's outside the test folder. So in that case, I need to put another dot. So another dot means go one step outside what the current folder. So in that case, we can actually do have access to everything outside our app and folder itself. So from there, we could just simply say from dot main, okay, main being what our file here, simply import the app itself, right? The instance of app itself. And then we now want to create our client or someone to simulate this test for us. So we can say client equals to test client that will do what I will take the instance of our application as a parameter. And basically that's all we need to do. So now you need to start writing our function. Okay, we need to start writing our function, right? And it's also recommended that your function should start with test underscore whatever follows the name. There's no problem. Regulate your test function start with what? With test underscore. With test underscore. All right. So we create one. So this one will just be diff that should score test underscore endpoint. Okay. And this one takes nothing. This one takes nothing. Right. And then the next thing is for us to do what? To make our client actually make the appropriate call towards to that particular endpoint. So we simply say client, right, dot the method, right, the appropriate HTTP method for that particular endpoint that we are trying to test for. In this case, is the get method, right, and then the URL of this, right. So in this case is what is the root URL, is the root URL. So after that, after this request has been done, automatically we get a response. So I can actually equate this to what to a variable to do what to actually see those responses. Actually equate this to a variable, and I can start doing what accepting this response to see if it meets our criteria, to see if it actually meets our criteria. So first of all, one simplest test we could do is the test for response code, right? Is the return response code, is it expected, right? Is it the desired code? Okay. So to do that, we simply use the keyword asset, right? So what assets do, like I said in our previous class, it basically just it, it, it it passes the test, right? It checks if they specify condition, because this asset takes in a condition. So it checks if the specified condition match it. Excuse me, excuse me. So it checks if the specified condition is true, right? So if it's true, then it passes that test, right? But then if it checks and it's false, then it will raise a citation error. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So we want to check for a response. This response here has a lot of attributes, right? So if you go to dot, you will see a lot of attributes that comes with this response, right? A lot of attributes that comes with this response. So one of them is want to check for status code rather. Status code, right? I want to make sure that what that status code is 200, and we also want to be sure that the JSON response or the response body that was sent actually matches the expected. Okay, so you say response.json. This will actually give you the JSON format or whatever response was being sent. So you could just compare that with whatever we specify for me. So we copy this one and bring it down here, and we could do what we could check if it do match, if it actually went through. So now we have that. So that could be our very basic text, right? That could be our very basic text. That could be our very basic text. So now next thing for you to do work is to allow PyTest to do work to this job by simply just telling PyTest to go ahead and do its job, and it will do its job very, very well. So for that, I would simply just go to my command prompt and let's show that we are there. So we could run it here, we could run it in. Okay, let me try and break my server and just run it here. Shut down. The server is not. So I'll close this for now and open it back up. Okay. One prompt. And all right, so we are here now. So we could just name this what we have here. So we have our app there. So basically what I want to do is I want to change directory for the purpose of PyTesting, testing, all right? So PyTesting can actually have access to the entire application. So I want to change directory to the app itself, the app folder itself. So I say cd into app folder. I can clear my screen for now. My terminal rather. All right, so I believe you're now in the folder. So I could just go ahead and type PyTest. All right, so PyTest is a built-in module, so it will carry out all the assertion in whatever file we have within here. So it did check, and what it saw that the current that we have only one test, right? Only one test, which is what we have here, but that what it is passed. So you saw that we talked about the possible responses that you get from a PyTest. Okay, so we saw that this particular test, that the assertion, all of them passed, right? So that particular test they passed. So that particular test did pass. I need to do that for every other test we have, right? For every other test we have. So let's go ahead and let's test for the subsequent the sub route. Okay. I think that's where we're having some issues, right? So let's go ahead and test that, and that should work as expected. Okay, as expected. So we copy this man, and then we okay, so we just create a new file. Remember, you can with the way these things are being structured, you can create as many files you want and just play around with them and it will work just fine. So I'll call this one test. I'll create a new file and call this one test. And this particular test is gonna test for everything pertaining to user, right? User.path. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. And so it's basically going to be almost the same importation because they're in the same directory, right? They're in the same directory. The test user and the test home are in the same directory. So it's almost going to be the same. Except that we're going to change the name here, right? So this particular one here would be an endpoint that should test for user, right? So let's go to user and let's see what endpoint we have here. So we say we have all user endpoint, okay? All user endpoint there. Let all user have this. So just put it there. It will be test all user endpoint. All user endpoint. I'm gonna test for expectation and also we're gonna test for the response that was sent out. Okay. Response that was sent out. So we want the user and then we test that. And that should be good to go. Basically, that's all. It should be good to go. All right. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and let's test this out and let's see that that we are good to go, right? So going back to where are we? This user. We will just we run our previous code PyTest, and PyTest should carry out that test for us. And then you see that what that it collected what two items because we have just two test functions, right? So the error that was there that we were actually encountering is no longer there, right? So that error was due to how we scattered our application, but with this now we've structured it properly, and we shouldn't be experiencing any importation error. So it has actually run the test that we have in test home and also run the test that we have in test user. Any question before we try out uh, some other test, right? Some other tests. Okay. Question.
No.
Question. Question. That's someone here. Okay. The silence means no question. All right. So let's put some wonderful endpoint, right? And let's make this test to look a little wonderful. So I'll go back to user again, right? So it means that you could say that so if it works for user, then it simply means that it can work for item. So you guys can actually try that out on your own time. So but I'll play around with this user endpoint a lot. So going back to user endpoint, right? So let's create an endpoint that takes a path parameter, right? I think someone asked that question in the previous class. I think I did some explanation, but I'm not sure if I actually completed that explanation. I can't remember. All right, so this particular one here that gets a user, right? Let's assume that this gets user should also be expecting an ID, a path parameter or ID. More music on moreexclusive.com. If not, so let's say that this man he is also expecting what a path parameter, and the specified path parameter will simply do what we use curly braces, and we call this man ID, right? Yes, and then we could simply just specify the ID here, and it will be seen as what as path parameter. At the moment, there is no variation if the ID should be string, integer, or we just want to put any random value, whatever we put there. Okay, whatever we put there. So let's go ahead and let's test for what for this man. An endpoint we want with path parameter. An endpoint with path parameter. So let's see. Going back to our user. So we copy. So we copy this one. So this one would be to get user, test get user, right? Get user endpoint.
More music on moreexclusive.com.
So this one will be get user endpoint. All right. So this get user endpoint is expecting what a path parameter, right? So if you go back again to confirm the route, to be sure, so we simply copy this man down to where we have that man, down to where we have our test. So we just put it here. So here I am. I said I think I can't remember if I said it, but then yeah, when testing for path that when test excuse me when testing for an endpoint that should accept a path parameter, right? You say you are the one to do what to come up with some random values that user can actually put there and then just put it there and keep running the test. So you can automate this with loop if you want, or whatever, or you can just run a test and then come up put another value, run a test and just keep seeing that it matches whatever criteria you had in mind. So in this case, I'll just put let's say 20 here, 20 there. And what is our response? Let's be sure. What's our response? Let's be sure. Going back to user. The response here should be user details with the ID. Let's say ID here can just come in here, ID. So I'll make this my extra ID of that, okay? So I'll just copy this response and be sure that is what we will have at the end of the day, okay? Going back to test user. So where we're here. So I want to show to you that we are having this that says user details with the ID of 20. Okay, ID of 20, right? Because that is what we specify here. So we are expecting 20 to what to fit in there. So you can move this if you want. It doesn't matter. You can leave it there. Right, so let's go ahead and run this particular test and let's see if it goes as expected. So confirm the test name, start with test, okay? And has a different name. Please, your test function can repeat name, right? So it doesn't conflict. And then appropriate endpoint, okay? And response code doesn't body, right? So let's hit PyTest again. So I'll claim my terminal one more time, CLS, and then you type in PyTest. Right, so you see what that it collected what 3 items. So now we have 3 test function, but then here is showing us what is showing us 2 directories. That's because that are the only directories that contains those files. But you tend to say that that the user file has 2 dots, where each dot represents success in a specific test function, right? So that's what those dots they represent. So if I had like 4 or 5 there, then those dots will just line up, just pile up there completely. Those dots will just pile up there completely. All right, so having that in mind, I'll keep it up. All right, so let's go ahead and carry out another test. This time around, let's test an endpoint that should have a query parameter, right? Query parameter. Let's test an endpoint that have query parameter. All right, so going back again to our user endpoint. Okay. Going back to our user endpoint, to be sure that we're following, right? I'll just copy this one as it is and just put it down here. And this one will be to filter. Probably with specific parameters, right? So this one would be filter user. So this should be filter rather. This man is not taking path parameter. So this one filter user, but the filter user has certain parameters. So one of them could be here ID, right? So we'll say user ID, right? For now, no string validation, no validation of those parameters, right? But we know how we can go about doing that. So we're going to filter by what? By user ID. And by the end of it all, we want to do what? We want to actually return a message that say list of users. I don't think if filter user with it, that doesn't actually sit well. Let's filter by name. I think people will likely be the same name, but ID cannot repeat. So let's do username, not actually username, but the user, probably let's specify first name, user first name. So let's filter everybody that has the same first name. So this could now be list of users with the name with the name, and then our user face name will just fit in there, right? Best. Okay. So let's go and test. Copy this boy. Copy the man mother. Paste it there. Just so we could just copy things from them. So we don't switch files. Okay. So that's why I'm putting it down there. So I bring this man down small. One space. And we will call this one. This one will be to test.
More music on moreexclusive.com.
This one would be to test. Sorry, this one here would be to test youth test filter user endpoint, right? This would be filter, right? And then the endpoint is this. So remember, this is a query parameter. So the query parameter does not actually um, specify like that as you've seen there, but we can make use of what of um, question sign, right? Question sign. So I'll paste this one there. So let's copy this one and then let's put it here. And then we put our question sign. Remember, this is a query parameter, and we are expecting what we are expecting user face name as a variable in that query, as a query variable. Then that should carry what? That should carry probably you could just say serial for now. Or we just say put capital. So let's just say that serial is all right. So that's the query. That is that the query. We can do this off. We have our filter, we have our query, and we have our value, and then up, we shouldn't need our response. As it, let's check the response. Sure, the response is working as expected. So this one here could now be list of user with the name. So this is where your query value, right, comes in. The name, so that will just go in there. So and that's basically what we are expecting to see, right? Yeah, that's if it's at least if zero was that, right? We are expecting to see that. So let's run this test again. So let's say by test. And you see that what that it did run the test perfectly well. This time we have 3 dots, right? 3 dots for 3 dots for 3 dots for test user file. That's because we have three whatever we have three test function there, right? We have three test functions. All right, so let's go ahead and let's try. But let's excuse me. All right, so let's try testing. Maybe let's try something. Okay, let's try testing for something else. Okay, let's try testing for something else. Let's try testing for something else itself. Okay, so there are a lot of things you can actually test for. You can even check for response headers if you want to, right? So response is actually found in response dot header. So you can actually check if a particular value is available in that in the request that's been sent out, right? If a particular header parameter is among the list of those parameters. So you can actually check for response text itself. Response text itself is basically the actual text and not the key, right? The value of your response. We can check for cookies. We can check for both query and path in one test function. You can even check for response time, right? You can check for response time when the request was made, and when the request was made, and when it was the response was being generated. So what's what's the time between those two, and check if your application is responding fast or the response time is quite slow. You could even test for let's see, you could even test for let's make a test for a post request, right? Excuse me. Yeah, there are a lot of tests out there that you can actually test for, right? So, and I think in our previous class we we actually did list out the different kinds of tests. Okay, so let's just check one more test and then to wrap it up. Right. So let's assume that we want to add user, of course, because that one that we have to do what to actually that we have to make a post request, right? So because we are actually adding, right, and post request and that is post request, right? Okay. So we are actually adding, and that is post request. So let's go ahead and let's create one. Let's go ahead and let's create one. All right. So I'll come here and go back to my item. I'll create a very simple one. So I'll call this add item. I think we're working with users. Okay. So I'll copy this one and I'll call this post. And this will just be add user, right? Add user, add user, right? This takes nothing. This takes nothing except that whatever it takes should just be user, and we could actually make use of our identity, right? Our schema here to just to make that validation, right? But I wouldn't want to go through all that. Okay? So basically, what I want to do is I just want to make this to be a type string because of dictionary. It means that whatever we are sending, right, we basically just want to make it a dictionary. Okay. It should belong to what a dictionary, or it should be a dictionary structure rather. Yeah, it should be a dictionary structure. Whatever we are sending, we haven't specified what to send yet. So we just want to make room for posting. But for now, we are saying post anything. Whatever you're posting should come in dictionary format. Remember, if I put int here, it means that whatever you're sending there should come should be a should actually be an integer value rather. Okay, so we could do that. So put back and just return this after it's submitted. This is just for testing purpose, right? Just for testing purpose, right? So now, how do you actually test for post request? Okay. How do you test for post request? Now, now, when testing for post request, right? So you we simply specify a JSON parameter in the post attribute itself, or in the post method rather, and then the JSON parameter should carry whatever we need to post in a JSON format or in a dictionary format as we want. So what do I mean? I'll copy this again. Copy this, put it down here. So this one would be test and user endpoint at user endpoint, and we'll just bring in our endpoint that we have in. So I'll copy this one, take it to our test user. Let's put it there for the meantime. So this is the endpoint for that. So I will simply just put that there. And then after the URL, you can just specify a JSON. Now you can see that this post parameter method, right, gives you room to add so many things. The same thing with the get method. So there's also a JSON parameter which actually we should take whatever is being sent to your endpoint. So this session takes in a dictionary structure. So you specify a dictionary structure and then specify whatever needs to be sent. And specify whatever needs to be sent. And then that's basically all we need to do. So in this case, I will just come here and so please okay. So one more thing that I want to clarify, okay. Excuse me, sorry. One more thing that I want to clarify is that this is okay. This is actually a JSON, right? What do I mean? So unlike our usual it's similar to our Python because okay, so because some people actually tend to conflict this, so where they can actually come here and then since it should be a JSON because this actually then always likely conflicts with JavaScript. Those people that are actually writing in JavaScript, most of their dictionary structure or what we call objects in JavaScript, where their key don't actually comes with quotation. So please when specifying this, put your quotes for whatever key is not an integer, right? So in this case, I'll just put name here, okay, and then colon. Let's let's say serial, and I want to assume that this is what we ask them to do, what to submit. So to add savior, and then probably we also want to get their age as well. I think that should just do. And then column just put like 1,000 years age. Okay, that should just do. Right? That should do for that. Right. And then basically the endpoint, we're also expecting the endpoint to simply just return whatever was being sent. Whatever was being sent. You want to check that has been sent out appropriately. That has been sent out appropriately. So having that, we are good to go. So we have our endpoint, the function name, we have the endpoint, we've changed the method. Please note, we've changed the method to post, right? And then we do what we specify data that needs to be posted. Of course, we're just checking for status code and the rest of those things. And we can now go ahead and just say, from here, we could just say PyTest. And then that actually have run all our tests for us successfully. Actually run all our tests for us successfully. Okay. Question before we run that up. So basically, that is how you would want to run your test. So there are other tests also run, like I said. We have got tests for headers. So the thing that headers is actually it comes in a dictionary form. Right? So if you're checking for headers, you want to actually um, use the in keyword. What do I mean? Let me just put let me put a sample here for us to see. Let me put a sample for us to see. Okay. So we say that let's assume that we are expecting that let's go back to our first get request. Let's just use this one for now. So let's assume that we are expecting that because by default I believe that content type as a header parameter is always there by for all default requests. But then if you check and it's not there, then of course the asset should do what should raise assertion error. So how do we do it? We simply check this assets. Okay, they want asset that this particular parameter is there. Remember, headers are always in dictionaries. Okay, so you want to check the content type that this particular key is there in that dictionary. Content type, right? Content type is available in member. So here we're not using the double sign here, right? Because this one is more like dictionary. So you're checking if it's actually there. It's an iterable here. Okay, so you want to use in to confirm that it's a member of that particular structure. Okay, so you want to check that if content type in response dot headers, all right? Dot headers. So this response, like I said, it carries a lot of information, and so it depends on you as the programmer, depending on what you need to test for. If you want to test for header, want to test for the response type, cookie, whatever you want to test for. All this information is available in the response parameter, right? So you could actually check them one by one, right, and see whichever one, or it depends on you what you're actually checking for. So if you run it again, I don't think this should throw an error because by default content type should be there as one of the header parameter. So if you go back and then run PyTest. Right, so like I said, it's always there by default, right? So it should be there. So that is that, and we are good to go. We are good to question before we wrap up with testing, so we can look at documentation. Yeah, we can wrap up quickly with documentation. Question. Question. All right, so silence means no question. The silence means no. Okay. That is fantastic. Okay, so let's look at documentation and let's wrap that up completely. Let's look at documentation. So our like I said before, by default, okay, by default, by default, fast API, okay, automatically documents some certain things for us. Right? So it documents some certain things for us, things that that should be there in our application. Right? Things that whatever we've inserted in our application get documented automatically by Fast API. So that is quite fantastic, right? It's a fantastic feature that comes with Fast API, right? So it helps you do that automatically. So then how do you actually see this documentation? It's quite simple. We also go to wherever your domain which your application is actually running on. Okay, then you just go there /docs and you see there /docs. So the documentation is being provided by Swagger UI. Okay, so that's what you get to see, right? So it is default, right? It's default. So let's run this up again and let's put on our server one more time, UVCon. So now I don't need to do app.main again because I'm already in the app folder, all right? So I just say UVCon, and then my main, and then column app, and then dash reload. All right, so so let's see, confirm that one more step backward. UVCon app column. Oh, dash reload. Oh, so let's go back and let's check that out for ourselves. So we have there and then forward/docs. Right, so we get to see this default documentation, right? So we get to see this default documentation, and we also get to see, well, we also get to see that we don't really have much information here, right? We don't really have much information here, right? But then there's some things that we can actually put to actually make a lot of sense. So far, I can say that in this particular endpoint, nothing, not too much information is here, right? So yes, we are aware that this endpoint does not really take any parameter, right? But then, what are we expecting to actually pass in here if we were to actually pass in here? Right? So nothing to actually show for, and I think everything is just actually grouped as one API, okay, as one in one order, right? In one order. Everything is actually grouped in that order, and it's grouped in a section, right? Called default, right? So and then but then in our first during our building stage, we've put these things by section, right? We put this thing section by section where we have the route that handles the user route that handles the route that handles the how do you call it? Route that actually handles the item as well. So as such, it would be nice if we just split this thing up, rather than doing what having this here, rather than having that there, right? So let's see some of those things that we can add to make our documentation a little bit nice. Right, so one thing you could actually add again could be a title to your endpoint. So that's one thing you can actually add to this. You can add some meta information to your application as a whole, right? Not each application, not each endpoint, but the entire application as a whole. You could actually add some like title, description, summary, and all those things. You can actually add them. And how do you do this? You simply just go to your application. Probably when you are done building and you're ready to do what to deploy. What you could just simply go to your main, right? And where you have your instance of your fast API. This man here takes me a lot of parameters, right? What that is title. So title is more like the title of your application, right? Or kind of like if you it's more like you're actually writing a book, right? And they want to give this book a title. So in this case, we could call this an endpoint if you want an endpoint. So it's an endpoint for, let's say, CodeCamp internet, intermediate, right? right? That one thing. And you can also get description, right? You can also take description, right? And description now is more like a detailed explanation of how this application work, or probably any other additional information you want to add. So you can take the description if you want to add that. So just add a simple one. This is a description. So description can be as long as you want. This is a description. So basically, what you want to do, if your description is quite long, if your description is very lengthy, right? What you could do is you could come up here and just do a multi-string, right? Multi-string, and then just type in your description there. So what do I mean? You could just come here as a description. Description. Description should be equals to, you could just provide a multi-string there, right? For documentation, right? Okay, and then you can type in whatever you want to type in there, right? You can type in whatever you want, and then you can pass this as well as a parameter, as a variable to your to your description there. Right? Sorry, guys. Sorry. Sincerely apologize for this inconvenience. Sorry. Right. So another thing you can take again is that you can also take summary. Summary is more like a summarized version of whatever your description carries. So we just say this is a summary, right? Summary is more like a description, and you can also add, if you want to, you can add version if you intend for the API to be evolving over time. So you can add version if you want. Or in this case, we just say this is a version 0.0.1. We say 0.0.1 version. All right. So you can also have terms of service, contact, and rest of them. But contact actually takes in a dictionary. So if I to add contact, then contact takes in a dictionary, right? So it takes in a dictionary. So in this case, I'll specify this, right? So here you can specify your name. So we say this could be group, say, so this should be in screen. This could be your, let's say, group one. And then you could maybe you guys email whatever information you intend to add there, then you guys can actually just go ahead and add it. It doesn't matter, right? So this one, there's no specific things that should come into the dictionary here, right? So you can put whatever thing you want to put there. You can add you guys emails. So it could be like a list of emails. So it could be a list of email for person one, people that are in your group if you want, and gmail.com. Add for the next person and so on and so forth. So you can add whatever information you need to do want to add there. All right, so you can also add license info, whatever, and all those things. So all those things are quite useful. It adds additional information to your documentation. Right? So you don't just want to randomly put in some things there that doesn't actually make sense. So this should be comma here. So you don't want to just randomly just send us some documentation that doesn't really make a lot of sense. So if you go back and then we refresh, then we should have some information before the beginning of our endpoint, right? Some basic information, right? Some basic meta data, meta information. It says that, well, let's confirm that our endpoint is working towards here. So this needs to be one there. And then let's go back and let's refresh this one. Right, so you can see we have the summary there, we have the description there, we have the contact, we have the contact name, and then within the contact name, okay, what happens is this your email is automatically linked there, right? So you could actually email the devs that owns this, all right? So it just in case there is bug, right, and someone wants to actually reach out to the developers, then you could just email the group, right? You could just email the group. You could just email the group. So that one thing you guys can actually add to your documentation and compared to what we have. So mine here is quite short because I'm just putting some random simple text there, like this is summary, this is description. But then you want to actually put a lot of things there, right? You want to actually put a lot of things there. Right. So let's see what else that we can actually add. Right. Let's see what else that we can actually add. Right. Let's see. Right. So if your endpoint actually have a path parameter, then it will automatically get that. I feel like this one actually does get that right. So it automatically lets the user know that what that this man is expecting what is expecting an ID and it's a path parameter. And then one can do what can just simply try it out and just put it there. So it shows that it's required, right? So if it was required, then it will show that it's not actually required. But then there's not too much information available there. You can just see these things there. Some random things there that doesn't actually make a lot of sense. It doesn't actually make a lot of sense. So if you have ID and you have query, then that will be documented automatically. You don't really have to do anything about that. If you also have a post request that is making of identity, then it will do that automatically. Let's just go back to our post request that we have. Let's actually so far it doesn't actually specify what we need to put there. Let's just go and just put an actual schema. Right? Let's bring in an actual schema. So I'll so this schema here will basically just be for let's say user schema. This will be user underscore schema dot py. All right, so within here we could just simply say from Pydantic. Now you could see that what that my schema is in my schema is sorry 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 about that. My user schema is in my schema file, right? So it's not scattered all over the interface again, right? So from Pydantic, I want to go ahead and import base model, right? Base underscore model, right? And then we could just create a very simple class that validates how to actually go ahead and how to actually go ahead and add a user. I should validate that. So this would be user identic. Okay. So this one inherit from base. We already know these ones. And then I'm expecting the username. Let's just put first name there to make it more explicit. First underscore name, and it should be string. Just expecting last name, and it should also be string. And we could also go with email if you want. And it should be string. So that's good. That would do that for us. All right. So now we want to do what make it make our user here to be a type of that class. So we simply bring in our user schema file down here, right? Now simply say from dot, which is our current directory. But then I want to go outside to schemas. So I want to go to schemas. From schemas, go ahead and import user schema. Right. So now I could just simply come here and say that this man here should just be user schema dot user. So it should be member of that particular class, right? And then we simply just return this man. All right. So let's go back again. Let's see what what the post now looks like. All right. So now you now have something reasonable, right? Something that makes a lot of sense, right? Saying that what that the request body is required, right? That this is an example of what that should be sent in first name, last name, email, and all should be what should be string. And of course, you're expecting a 200 response, but then the output, what I'm expecting as output is not too wonderful. So let's just keep adding, right, to make these things wonderful. All right. Now we have that. Now we have that. So now you know that what the query path and request body will get documented automatically. So it's always advisable or recommended that the request body should be validated by Pydantic. So it gets documented and give detail to someone else that's using your application. So you don't just want to randomly put something there. That doesn't really make sense, right? Then one important thing again that you should always do is response model. Very important. This thing is very, very important. Response model is what will also not only validate what is going on, but also document whatever is coming out here. So far as you can say that this is what we actually have. Not too wonderful, right? Not too wonderful. So response model is very important as well. is very important as well. So I'll go back to where are we? Yeah, okay. To our this month, and then I'll simply just so basically you would want to what to be providing response model for each of your routes, right? If possible, right? If possible, because it makes your documentation more detailed. It makes it more detailed. So here I'll specify the response model for this particular endpoint. All right, and the response model here will just basically be the same class that is violating, right? The same class that is violating is exactly the same class that is sending out. That is sending out. Excuse me. That is sending out. All right, so let's go back and let's check our post now. So you see that the response model seems not to be holding up there. Let's see what is happening. Okay, no worry. We'll sort that out. So I know what the problem there is, right? I know what the problem there is. Just the problem there is that we need to go back to our model, and then we need to our pedantic, right? We need to actually bring in. We'll go back to our pedantic. So the reason why why it's not actually documented is right. So this is actually to actually make for fast API to automatically document the output, right? And you need to actually specify the example parameter, right? The example parameter for for each of your fields, right? So that is what fast API will use to document. So in that case, we need to bring in our field. So instead of doing this now, we will now simply just come here and then we'll simply just specify field, right? And then I don't want to go too much into documentation, so I'll just say that, and then come on, example. So we need this example parameter. We need this example parameter. Excuse me, sorry about that, guys. So we can do what we can start specifying some examples here. So I could just say cool, right? So this should be my string, but that's so this Python still holds. Excuse me, sorry about that. Sorry about that, guys. Then I'll do the same thing. I'll do the same thing for last name. For example, here should be for instance. Same thing happens here. The email should just be sample@gmail.com. Sample.gmail.com. Right, so going back, when we refresh, let's see, so that we are correct. Let's see. Give me a second, let me look at that. Let's see. All right, so I think we will need this. So let me remove this one at the moment. That was old version of fast API. That won't work. All right, so let's go back and let's refresh. This says we have problems. It says that what? Type missing. Type missing. Let's see what is happening. Let's see what is happening here.
I think the example should be in list.
Let's see. I think yes. Oh, perfect. That is true. Exactly. That is true. That should go in on the list. The other was just right there. Yeah, so let's try that again. Let's see if we are up and running. All right, so we're up and running, and that happens not to showing. Let's see what is happening here. Let's go back to our code. So that should move complete this. It's complex. Let's see what is happening. Let's go back to our should work. That should work. Let's compare now. This thing here is going as planned. Right, let's see. This one missing. Okay. And so let's break the saver and bring it back up again. So that should have to work. Right. UV gone. On another port 770. Dots. Let me see. See. Let's go ahead and let's do this. So maybe let's see. Okay, field. This is my type of let's say string. Let us replicate this for all of them. Let's see. Let's see. The example here should be bar. It should be full bar. So it needs to be example and not examples. It should be example, singular, not examples. Please, that should be example and not examples. Let's go back. Let's refresh this and let's see. It's still not working. So we got here. Unrealized type class. Okay. Let's go back and do this again. Right, so that was solved. So let's see if we have our response. All right, so we have our success response now sorted out. All right, so what I want to point out here is this. All right, so this should be example, please, not example. So there was an additional page there. I think so. That was where the problem was actually coming from. So that should be example, and then and then you can provide the example of what the end user should actually send to your server, right? And you could do that for basically every post request. Excuse me. You can do that for basically every post request, and so just to guide the user on what should or what is expected and what not to be what not to be expected. All right, so one more thing you can do again is you can have what we call tags. All right, so tags is more like section. So you can actually just section your application, right? You can actually section your application. So far, like I said, application is kind of packed in one. If you ask me, right? It's kind of packed in this default section called core default, all right? So it's packed there. So now what you could do is if you intend to split them on different sections depending on each of these routes, okay, then you could do that using an attribute called tags, right? An attribute called tags. So what you could then do is you could go back to your endpoint, right, to user, and then you could just basically come here and then you could specify what we call tags, right? So that method also takes tag, and tags should be a list because your endpoint is permitted to be in more than one section, right? It's permitted to be in more than one section. So in that case, you could have simply have come here, and then you could just say, okay, probably this belongs to people of routes of users, right? Of users, and just repeat that for each of these routes, which also come back and show us a more convenient way of doing this, right? So you could do this for basically all of them. Okay. So to let the API know that this route belongs to the tag to the user section, right? So tags will section this particular endpoint and group them as one section. So if you refresh now, then we should have a section called users, and then you see that it packs all those endpoints, right, that belong to users, and just simply group them and as one endpoint, right, as one section rather, as one section, and you could do that for the rest of them. But then it wouldn't be that nice, okay? It wouldn't be that nice if if you have about let's say about 100 endpoints and then you just keep copying tags and repeating for all of the 100 endpoints. That doesn't sound too convenient for me. So what you could do is that you could just um, add it to the endpoint itself, right? Like add it rather to the instance of the route itself. So in this case, if we have that this route here are created with API routers. So it's similar to what we have to a fast API instance there. So now this API router has an attribute called tap as well. So basically whatever excuse me, whatever changes that is being made to the API router is automatically passed to all the endpoint within this file. So in that case, then I will simply just put my tags here instead of duplicating it for all of them. So put my users there, and I will just delete these ones out. Yeah, more like noise, or more like we putting ourselves, which we do not want to do that. Right. So and they are gone. Go back again, and then you refresh them. And endpoints will still be as active as it were. All right. So you still have that group in there, and you could do the same thing for we do the same thing for the items there, right? So just copy this one here, go to items, just go to this one here and paste it there, and I'll call this one item, and it will group that for me. Right now, we now have another group called items. You can also do that for your main, and of course, it will also group this just this route again. for that particular section. So this way, if I'm actually going through your documentation and I'm planning to make use of just routes in sections, all right, sorry, routes in items, then there wouldn't be need of me doing what scrolling and be finding route that belongs to item. I could just simply close every other section and just leave the item section open and work with just those routes. Do you understand?
I have a question.
All right.
I have a question.
All
Are
right.
you with me, sir? So now this documentation, now, if someone wants to use our API, where do they find this documentation? So that's my question. Hello.
That's a question, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Did you get my question?
No, I didn't get the question. Sorry.
Yes, my question is now, let's
Okay.
say now I've built the API.
Okay.
So let me now say, just like you said, maybe you only want to access the item. So I just
Okay.
want to know, how will the person know where the item is? Just checking my documentation. Where will the person find my documentation? How will the person locate my documentation? That's
All
my
right. So
question.
okay. All right. So this URL here is by default, right? So you could just send the person that this URL, and the person once your application goes live, right? Because right now they can't actually view it because at the moment our application is running in our local machine. So application is running in our local machine, and that doesn't really so we can't actually share this. But but when you deploy this, right, then you could just send this send this URL to to your your front end engineers, and they could just work with them, right? And they could just work with them. You understand?
Yes, I understand. Okay, the website I will send, will I also include this slash docs? So this slash docs, does it work with all URL, or just the one that we build the fast API?
Okay, so this slash docs is more like it's more like a standalone URL, right? It has no affiliation with your endpoint, right? So each of your endpoint, the URLs are there. So if you look at my cursor there, the URL are there. So it basically means that if from the click this, right? So it basically means that if one is to actually use this, then what they should simply do is to navigate to this particular URL, right? So the URL is when they click on it, of course, it shows up there, right? So it shows up there. So what they now do
Yes, no, that's not what I'm saying. I know that the URL will be there. So I'm
okay.
saying that this slash docs hash, because it's this slash doc that is bringing this kind of user interface. This slash
Okay, yeah.
doc.
Okay.
So I'm saying that, does this now work? This slash docs, does it work with all URL? That is not this our own. Maybe I can
If you
just
want,
bring maybe google.com. Maybe I just google.com slash docs. Will it also bring something like this for me?
yes, once you deploy your application, whatsoever your domain is, then your domain will actually fill in there, and you just put the slash docs
Okay.
and you get
Okay.
yeah, and you get
Okay. Okay.
then you can also change this URL to the customized one, to the one you want. I think. Give me a second. Give me a second. So what you simply do is in your fast in your main file, okay, your main file also have what we call docs URL, right? Docs URL. So docs URL is you can actually go there and you specify a new route for this. So what do I mean? You could just go to your main, and then you go to your fast API, right? Remember, and then you could just specify another parameter. This around you could just specify let's say doc URL, docs URL. So it comes up. So here you could specify a customized one that you want. So probably you want the user to go to instead of doc, probably go to group 1 dash documentation. Now what? Right now, when someone tried to go to /docs, then you could say that, well, that particular endpoint should no longer exist because that has now been overridden. But so you said that, well, that endpoint is no longer there. All right. So now what you could now do is that you could now go to the one that you've now specified, and which is group 1 / documentation. So if you go back there, you just specify after your domain, you just put group 1 / documentation, and click on enter, and you have your documentation there. Voila. So now you can just share this, right? Now remember, once we deploy, which in our next class, what we'll be doing, we will actually get to deploy. So you can just share with ourselves our endpoint URL. Now, once you deploy, so if you deploy at, let's say, we'll be using Render, so and then of course, you will be buying a domain name. So Render will give us a custom domain name. So whatever Render gives you as a custom domain name, then you just put it there. Except you intend to move forward and buy a domain name, which you can if you want to. Right? You can, and then I will show you how to set up a custom domain name. But whatever it is, and whatever domain that Render gives you, will replace this, and then followed by your input. Do you understand? Any other question?
Yes, I still have
Any other question?
many questions. I still have many questions because based on
Okay.
the project itself, because now we'll now be going through the project itself. So because there
Yes.
was this assessment you gave us where we sent email and something like that. I said you have to use either email or SMS. So
Okay.
and the group I think we'll be doing something like that, which will be also be handled with by the backend.
Yes,
So now
exactly.
I'm saying that now, is it that for these projects now,
Okay.
both the deployments, the SMS and the likes, we have to look for free services, or we have to pay with our money to use?
No. You're not paying anything. You're using free services. All right. So don't worry. That's why I'm trying to round up our classes by next class. So the remaining 2 weeks, we use it to see how we can play around with some actual application. So for email
Is it
services,
okay? Okay,
for email
okay.
for email for email services, right? We don't have to pay for anything. We will use Elastic Mail. So Elastic Mail actually gives free services of about 200 mails per day. So you just use that for that period, okay? And then for storage database, right? We'll be using Render, of course. Render gives 90 days free database. So everything we're using will be free. Same thing for storage. We're using Culinary. I think China is free, but they give you a limited space. That limited space should be enough for our project phase. Nobody will come and upload a full movie of 10 gig, right? Of course, you wouldn't even allow that. So you check those sizes and you not allow anybody to upload files about certain things. So once we wrap up our class by Thursday, right? We should. That's when we are done with deployment. Then what we can do is we can actually pick up a demo, a simple demo project that should cover most of these areas, and then we build it like an actual application in preparation for the actual project phase. I don't know what will happen in that project phase, okay? But then I should you
The
should
project phase have started already, because I think we are starting it maybe first week of next month. So it's here already. So because this one that we are just postponing, because that's why I was just I was a little bit kind of like sad that we've not been having class, because even during when we are writing proposal, some of our proposal included what we've not done, how we are going to deploy it, and because they were asking me, because when it comes to project as well, the back end really have C, because they will be the one to structure the backbone of the application itself. So
exactly.
Because they were kind of asking me several questions, I was like, see, man, I don't even know. I don't even know anything about deployment and the likes, because I think that was what we are supposed to do. I will ask it in the class, but we never had any class then. So I don't know.
Our next class is deployment.
Because we have class this Thursday. We have class this Thursday.
We will. Definitely.
I say please try. Let's have class so that we have enough time to do the practical aspect, and we ask reasonable questions, because all these ones, they are still /item/item. So I don't know. This one is not even real life at all. It's just still /items. It's all this.
All right, right. Don't worry. Once we wrap up the deployment, then we should get into actual building simple products and kick it off. All right. So don't worry.
And there are several people as well. They said they are in group stage 7. So I don't know. We are still in stage 6. Some I don't know. They said they are in
new,
stage 7.
yes, new tasks will be dropping for us in stage 6 today to to do the tasks and move to stage 7. So
Okay, to
we
be
are
dropping today, this night.
yes, this night.
When you're dropping it, I appreciate if the tax is not too bulky. Solving all those tax.
Yeah, the tax is harder than what you are even doing in class. So in not series, kind of.
Yes.
I don't know.
The whole purpose of, like I said, I think in the very first class, I said that we are limited to what we talk in class. All right. So mine is to come and pick the concept and explain it. Yours is to explain the concept. Right. Mine is to explain the concept and use to actually explore it. But then we'll get all this software when we start building an actual application from beginning then to deployment, where we will involve all these things, all these all the external services, the storage, database, and those of those things, and we'll see how it gets to work, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's now a place to explore the concept.
Sorry.
I said it's true that yours is to teach, ours is to explore, but the tax you're giving us is not 2 days tax. Before we
Okay.
debug it, because before we solve it, knowing that we are someone like me that's
Probably.
new to it, so it takes a little bit of time.
Right, this particular one, I think it should be 3 days. If I drop the tax today, it's Tuesday, and deadline should be Friday now. So you have like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Probably I can just close my eye and add Saturday. I'm only 4 days. It shouldn't that be enough, but I don't think 4 days will come. So let's say maximum of 3 days. It's going to be a very simple tax, right? Very simple tax that you should wrap up in a couple of hours, even 6.
Okay, sir.
Right. So in the absence of any other question, which I don't think, except do we have any other question? Any other question, contribution? All right. So in the absence of any other thing, so we'll wrap it up there for tonight and see you guys on Thursday. That Thursday class must hold, right? Yeah, no, that Thursday class must hold. Right. So I'll see you guys then. Right. You do have a wonderful evening rest or night rest rather. And bye for now.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.